Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 9, season 2 of Sipping Tea with Stacey T. How's everybody doing? Happy last day of Black History Month. Now, for me, every day is Black History, right? But it is important that we still remember the importance of what started off as Negro History Week and became Black History Month. It is a month to celebrate all things that are Black, all things through our ingenuity and our efforts and our sacrifice and our love and just who we are. Yeah, it's the shortest month of the year, but regardless, like I said, 365, we can celebrate, we can honor, we can remember, we can reflect on the beauty, the power, the brilliance of Black people. So happy Black History Month. Hopefully everybody's doing well today. It's a good 30 degrees there. That's excellent. It's supposed to be pretty okay here, I think. I think it's going to snow. I don't know if it's today or tomorrow. I don't know, y'all. It's still winter. We have to deal with it. Winter in New England, you know how that goes, right? We all know how that goes. Just going to make sure to, I'm doing okay. It's funny. I've been processing a lot, as you know, right? I've been processing a lot of information, and I'm still in that download process. I'm still in that, okay, God, what is this period, this journey, this step of the journey? What does it look like? So that's kind of where I'm at. But in the midst of it, I'm doing all right. I'm not going to complain. You know what I'm saying? Not going to complain. All right. So today, what tea are we? Hey, Kathy, how are you doing? Welcome in. Happy Saturday to you. So what tea are we having today? Today, we're going to have a tea that we've had before. I'm not sure if I tried this one, and I'm a little nervous, if I'm going to be honest, because for me, I really don't like a tea when it's bitter, right? And I find that so many teas get bitter really quickly. So I'm going to be, if you guys notice that I'm watching very quickly to kind of remove the tea bag, it's because I am watching very closely to remove the tea bag before it gets dark, because I don't like it. That being said, what is the tea today? We're having Twinings Earl Grey Extra Strong. That's why I'm nervous, right? Because it already says it's extra strong. So we're going to see what this one tastes like. Today's honey of choice is my fave, which is the Oliveras Honey Company creamed honey. So that's that one right here. If you still haven't tried this brand, what you waiting on? For real, what's going on? Why have we not tried this? Now, I'm sure there's lots of different types of honey. I've enjoyed getting onto this honey journey, because I wouldn't have, to be entirely honest. Honey to me was like something you put on salmon. And I wasn't mad at it, but I wasn't like, ooh, honey, big deal. You'll need some cream or milk with that. Well, we're going to see what it does, because I don't have either one of those. So I'm going to literally put the tea bag in for 2.2 seconds. I think, and then we're going to see what happens. So let me organize my life, because I feel like my life is not organized at this moment. So, all right. Again, this is the tea bag. Wish me luck, y'all. I'm going to open it up. I've been spoiled recently. You guys know I've been using those True Honey tea bags, which are clearly a lot bigger, have a lot more, but where this is already telling you that it's extra strong. So this is the funny thing, right? This actually smells like the potency of the True Honey ones. The True Honey ones, as you guys saw, they're a lot bigger. The actual tea bag is probably like double, or maybe a third more of the size of this, but it's a lot more actual leaves inside. So we'll see. We shall see. I'm nervous, but I got you guys to hold my hand. Y'all are here. Giving grace, but still looking at what? It's honey. This is the honey. It's creamed honey. All it is whipped. It whips the honey. There's nothing else in it. Why are you giving me grace? What do I need grace for? What do I do now? Lord. It's regular honey. It's just creamed, which means it is spun and creamed up. That's it. Somebody whipped it, sat there, and spent all that time doing all that. That's all that means. I'm telling you, it's a tough crowd in here. A tough daggone crowd. So I put the hot water in and it's already almost immediately dark. So I'm gonna be paying a little bit of attention to this. I'm paying attention to y'all. I promise. I promise that I am. I'm paying attention to y'all. Talking about giving me grace. All that means is that it's daggone cream. It got whipped. That's it. It's whipped honey. You know I have to mess with you. Yeah. I'm telling you, it's a rough crowd in here. It's a rough crowd. All right. So y'all, I'm steeping the tea bag. I'm actually holding it, and it is I'm trying not to cheat, because I could have just gone dip, and then taken it out. But I'm trying to actually taste whatever makes it extra bold, strong, whatever what's the word? Extra strong. So, all right. It's dark enough for my liking. I mean, it's dark, y'all. It's literally a few shades lighter than this black spoon. So, just as a frame of reference, it is very dark. Okay. All right. Let's put in some of the honey. Because, well, you know what? Let me try it without it first. If I can. It's probably it's too hot. It's too hot. I can't even try it yet. I'm going to try it without. You may just like it. Let it steep. You think I should still let it steep? All right. I'll put the tea bag back in. I guess if worst comes to worst, I just don't drink it, y'all. If worst comes to worst, I just don't drink it. It will be bitter. Yeah, I'm not letting it stay in there for too long. I'm not going to let it stay in there for too long. Yeah, it is. It is dark. So with that, let's remove that tea bag and add some honey because I'm not even going to bother y'all. Ooh, wee! Y'all. When they said extra strong, ooh, wee! Extra strong, you could shovel a whole neighborhood. Y'all. I'm not going to say it's nasty. I am going to say it's an acquired taste. And I have not acquired that said taste. That's how it's supposed to taste. Yeah, no thanks. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not. If you're a person that likes extra bold, then you're going to like it. I'm not that person, right? I don't know. I don't. But it's not even about. So the bold flavor is not horrible. It's almost like this. For me, it almost had like an aftertaste that I can't really fully describe. I will let my family try it later, and they can let me know if they appreciated the extra strong flavor that is attached to it. I'll let them be the taste testers and the descriptors of whether or not it was, all that it needed to be. They can do that. Steamed milk with froth, you'd be great. Yeah, well, you know what? When somebody decides to do all that, then I will try it. But I'm basic, y'all. Basic. I'm put it in the thing, let it steep for a while, and then try it. Like that's me. All set. I have had it. Oh, you've had it? Well, congratulations to you, ma'am. Good for you. Now, I'm not saying like, how sometimes you go to a conference and they have very limited things and you're like, okay, I really want tea. I would drink it, y'all. I'm not saying that I wouldn't drink it, but it is definitely, it's definitely something that I would have to put some honey in, like, or some sugar. I said the S word, sugar, right? All right, so I'm going to let that honey do what it really needs to do for me today. So I'm going to let it do that. And in the meanwhile, let's talk about the subject for today. Today I'm going to be talking about part of the process of the healing journey, which is not just pushing things externally, So healing, a lot of times people, think about healing as, going back into their past, or solely going back into their past, and thinking about the things that, or addressing some of the things, the people, the situations that they went through that shaped them, whether for bad or for good, right? So that's a lot of what people think about their healing journey to be. And it is a portion of that, right? That is an important part of your healing journey. It's important for you to be able to go back into situations or circumstances that made you feel some type of way, that maybe you feel like took away a little bit of your power, that minimized or shrunk or took your voice, right? Let me get comfortable, y'all. Y'all know how I do. So it could have been any number of those things, right? And so that, for a lot of people, when they think about a healing journey, that's really what they focus on. Not a bad thing. However, a lot of times when people are doing that, right, when people are committed to doing that portion of their healing journey, what can happen is that people are really focused on the external, right? This person did that to me. This person said that to me. This person harmed me, harmed me. Excuse me. And it's not bad that you're doing that in part, but your healing journey is an internal journey. So the reality is, yes, those people may have harmed you. Yes, those people may have done something that is horrible to you, or said something that has been lasting or hurtful to you. But the reality is that you may never get an apology for that, right? You may never get somebody that has a conversation with you about that. You may never be able to unpack what that means, or why, right? And I get that for some people, that's very important. I've been in that space where I really wanted answers to why somebody would treat me a specific way, why somebody would talk to me that way, why somebody left something with me, right? That, that just it framed me in a way that wasn't healthy, right? So I've wanted those answers. I've definitely been that way on, even on interviews. Why, what was it about the other candidate that stood out, that may be something that I could work on? And there's a portion of that that's good, because what you're trying to do is figure out some of the things that could have made you better, could have made you stand out, could have made you see things differently. That in itself is not bad again, right? But unfortunately, many people get stuck on just blaming the other person, or just seeing the wrong of the other person. While that doesn't make it untrue. Those people could have been horrible people. They could have said nasty things. They could have been devastating to what your situation was as you grew up. But the reality then still becomes is you're the one living with it. You're the one experiencing it. And if you don't ever get an apology, then what? Right? So then what is your next step? Being stuck for the rest of your life, being in a position where you always feel defeated, or you always feel minimized, or you always feel like you have no worth or no value because maybe somebody told you didn't, or treated you as if you didn't. Maybe somebody didn't see your brilliance. They didn't see what God had planned for you. And so they treated you from a perspective of their own hurt, their own minimal view of themselves, right? And then they thrust that on you. And that happens very often. There's a whole host of people, if we go back into, people we've known over our lifetime, that have been hurt by other people, and they never did their work. They never sat and said, what do I need to clean up in my own heart, my own personality, my own mind, before I bruise someone else along the journey? And as you may have heard me say, when I first started my healing journey last year, one of the things for me is, I did feel stuck, but I also didn't want to bruise people as I healed. Now, I'm not going to say that healing is not messy, because healing is messy. That's part of the process, right? That is going to be anytime when you're trying to work something out, you're trying to work a new muscle, you're trying to get fit, you're trying to change something, right? It is a messy process, because there's starts and stops, there's ebbs and flows, there's like, I want to try, I'm afraid to try, there's people don't think that I'm ever going to make it or be different, and so that makes you feel some type of way for a lot of people, right? The end has to be in your mind. My healing is more important than people's opinions, people's thoughts, even my own negative self-thoughts. I have to get to be the best version of myself, because it's attached to my purpose, right? It's attached to the purpose that God has established for me. So I have to make every effort, regardless of how people feel about me, regardless of how people sometimes treat me, how they see me. And the reality is, we've all, been attached to people that may have known us at one stage of our lives, and they will always and forever keep us in that one stage, right? You're Stacy, you're still in college. I graduated college decades ago, y'all. Right? So the reality for some people is like, well, actually, it was not 2 decades, but yeah, y'all get the general point, right? The fact of the matter becomes that people will keep you in a space if you allow for them to do that. Your job is to make sure you set yourself free, your mind, your spirit. You need to set yourself free because you can't leave that up to someone else. And that's a really big ask sometimes because we're taught not necessarily how to be interdependent, which is like relying on people to be who they are as opposed to relying on people to get things done. So oftentimes we are codependent, right? If, oh my gosh, if this person, like, for example, oftentimes when people don't see me with my sister, they're like, where's she? Or vice versa. We actually exist without being under each other's armpit 24 hours a day, right? So, but people, because they were always used to seeing one with the other, when one is not with the other, then there's something weird that's happening, right? Where we very much have our own existence, but yes, we do a lot of things together. So there's interdependence in that we can count on each other, but we don't need to be under each other's armpit 24 hours. Well, I never want to be under her armpit, but you guys get the general point, right? So when I was talking to God this week, one of the things that I was, basically sitting in a space of, because I've told you guys my phrase for the year is, God, I don't understand it, I don't like it, but I trust you. And so one of the things that I feel like I had to sit with and wrestle with was these questions. And oftentimes when we're in a situation where we're trying to improve, we want to ask other people questions. Like I mentioned before, if you don't get a job, you might ask the person that says, hey, Stacy, we decided to go in a different direction. You might say to that person, okay, can you give me any information as to what you found, that I needed to work on, or what you found that was more attractive about the other person's skill set? You may ask those types of questions for your own personal development. The same is going to be true of when you are in your healing journey. There are going to be checkpoints where you need to be able to ask yourself sometimes difficult questions. And I'm going to tell you, they're called difficult questions for a reason, because they make you look inward. They make you have discussions or conversations with yourself that you may not be ready to have. You just may not be ready to have. But if God is challenging you and God is pushing you and God is prompting you, then you also have to recognize that there's a reason why these questions come to you, because there's a point in time where you have to be able to assess how you're doing, right? Any single thing that you're doing in life has to be, tested, unfortunately, right? Sometimes I'm like, okay, God, I just don't want to take a test today. And he don't care nothing about that. He's like, okay, but I need for you to take this test because you're saying you trust me, but I can't tell that that's the case until it's a proven thing, right? So I'm going to read some of the stuff down, and then I'm going to ask you all some questions, and you can answer them if you feel like it. I'm going to talk about some of my thoughts, responding answers that I would have towards some of these questions. I actually did this in TikTok, and it was funny. When I did this, I had some people ask or talk to me about some of the questions that I asked after that, which I found interesting. So one of the first things I want to read is what I wrote: is healing is a personal journey that happens within your body, your mind, and your spirit, but it is experienced and it is proven in community. I've said that to you all many times in a variety of different ways. Same meaning, right? Which means healing happens inside of your own body, your mind, and your spirit. But the only way that it's experienced, it's experienced by other people, right? So what happens in you, other people get to take advantage of. The reality is, though, they also, if they're wanting to take advantage of, it's kind of like, the Bible says, if I suffer with him, then I'll reign with him. So as you're going through this process of healing, people are going to have to go through the rough edges with you. If they care about you, they're going to give you grace as you're going through the rough edges. If they don't give you grace, they don't give you grace. But you still have to decide that your journey is more important. The end, where you're trying to get to, that best version of yourself, is worth the rough edges. It's worth, sometimes the disagreements. It's worth if people don't understand it, don't get it, don't support you. It's worth that, because at the end, the version of you is going to be closer to your purpose. It's more connected to your purpose, more connected to God. And then based on that, people will come around that are supposed to come around, and the people that don't, we're not meant to. And that's also okay. That is also okay, right? But you have to stay focused on getting to that next version of who you're supposed to be, right? The better version of who you're supposed to be. And then, as I said, it's also proven in community. How is it proven in community? How is healing proven in community? Because, you know, you're having conversation with someone, and when you're just you and God, everything is fantastic. Everything is wonderful. It's you and the Lord. You're having a beautiful Holy Ghost time. But you don't live with you and the Lord. You live in the world. You live with community. You live with other people. And those other people are going to get on your last nerve. They're gonna jump on that sucker, right? They're gonna, you know, do like the river dance. They're gonna ballet on that sucker. They're gonna do all the things, right? When, as they do those things, when you're in a space where you are working through some of the things that you have, you know, dealt with, then your response is going to be different. When you're in a space where you're not, where you're still healing, but you haven't gotten past that thing, the things that they do are going to irk you. The things that the way that they talk to you is going to get under your skin. The way that they manage you, or maybe sometimes you're in a situation where people ignore you, or people you know, steal your ideas, or people talk over you, whatever it is, right? The things that get under your skin as you're healing, you have to give yourself grace for, because I'm going to tell you, I expected certain things not to bother me, and when they still bother me, I was like, God, why is this thing still irking me? Because I know that it's going to be a thing. I know that, you know, things are what they are. I know people are who they are. I know I'm who I am. I'm people, right? So I know that all those things are going to happen still. And I was bothered by the fact that I was bothered. I didn't, and I will say that I don't give myself grace. I don't know that other, you know, other people have the same issue of not giving themselves grace, but healing is messy. It's going to be. You're trying to rework or try to learn for the first time different behaviors that are healthier, that are more helpful to you. So I have to recognize that it's not always going to be there's going to be days that I lose my cool. There's going to be days where I want to sit in silence. There're going to be days that somebody else loses their cool with me. And then how do I react to the fact that they may lose their cool with me, right? It's a process. But the only way that it is proven is when you have those interactions, right? And it doesn't mean, and let me just also be clear, if you do lose your cool, it's messy. I just told you that. I will tell you, for me, when things would get messy, I would be so angry at myself. I would sit there and have a conversation with God about how I failed. And I was like, how am I continuing to talk about my healing journey if there's moments where, you know, the things that somebody does that, you know, I'm used to still gets under my skin or gets on my nerves. But the fact of the matter is I'm still processing. And I'm also processing a lot. There's a lot. It's not like one area of your life that you're healing in. There's like, oh, this is happening over here, and this is happening over here, and this is happening over here. We give babies the benefit of the doubt when they keep getting up and they're tripping and falling up. Okay. And we give encouragement, right? But for ourselves, we're like, Dad, get it together. Why you keep stumbling over something? Why do you keep doing this, that, and the other thing, right? So it's really imperative that as you're healing, for those of you who are considering healing, you're on your healing journey, you know someone who is healing, it's imperative that you give grace, because you know that it's messy. If you've been in it yourself, you know that it's messy. If you are a person, I mean, and just think about it in terms of our relationship with God, right? If God treated us in the same way we treat other people as they're trying to heal, we would be in trouble. In trouble, because he forgives a million, he forgives endlessly our foolishness, our lack of time, the way we talk to other people. Because if we thought about people that we were interacting with as children of God and his kids like that, and we knew that, you know, talking to other people the way that we're talking to them, it would be like talking to God like that, we would never. But it's a process of learning, right? It's a process of figuring out lots of different things. So some of the questions that I had to sit with were really interesting. They were really interesting. But one of the things I want to say before I do say that is, when you're on your healing journey, there's tons and tons of steps, right? So there, for me, the first step was silence. It was sitting in silence with God, and that's a very intentional and repetitive cycle, right? Why? Because as you learn something else, or as something else is brought to your attention, you have to sit back and say, okay, all right, yep, that made me feel some type of way. Or, yep, I'm remembering something that happened to me in my childhood that I had hidden from even from myself, right? Or, okay, this is a thing, or that is a thing, right? So there's moments where you have to box out all the other noise. You have to, like, literally eliminate that so you can hear from God. So God can download what he needs to download into your spirit, right? And into your mind. He needs to encourage you. He needs to clean out. He needs to fix and move things to the side, or eliminate people, right? There's a lot that has to go on as you're going through these stages and through healing. So for me, that was the most important thing. Time to reflect and unpack was another phase, or another step. Time to journal. Y'all know that I'm writing, so it's, for me, important to journal. Why? Because you need to get things out of your physical body. Oftentimes we'll sit and reflect and reflect and reflect, and what happens then is not that we're reflecting anymore. We start to fixate, right? We're fixating on a thing, fixating on a behavior, fixating on something, trying to make sure, like, trying, why is this person this way? Why does this person not act like this? Why does this person not behave like I want them to do? Why can I not control this situation, right? So we start to fixate. Okay. So journaling is a way to get things. Obviously, going to therapy would be another way, right? Um, Time to mourn and grieve and express varied emotions is another phase. And again, that also can be repeated. You don't have a time where you have to feel, right? You should feel all of the time. Even when you're talking to God, you're, having that silent time with God. That may be a very angry time. That may be a very, sad time. That may be a very somber time. It may, there's a lots of emotion that you're going to express throughout, but there's a point in time that I find in your healing where it almost bubbles out of you to the point that it's necessary for it to come out, right? And for the gentlemen that may be watching this, please understand that healing is necessary, right? Healing and emotions are necessary. Tapping into and having awareness of your emotions is necessary. I'm not saying you have to boo-hoo at, watching a commercial like I might, but you also do need to understand that tears are helpful. They're healthy. They're a way for you to process. They're a way for you to let out, right? Oftentimes we feel like in order to be strong, which that's a whole nother story, right? But in order to be strong, we have to show up this way, and we have to not tap into this emotion. And the only emotion that we can tap in is to anger. No. No. All right. Because also remember, your emotion impacts somebody else's emotion. So if you show up in anger, then guess what? If you show up in judgment, then guess what? If you show up in petty, then guess what? Right? So you have to, it's a process that you are gaining awareness of yourself, but also an awareness of other people. And based on having awareness of other people, it allows for you to be able to move forward for you. All right. The next thing is time to converse with people, therapy, church leaders, whomever you feel like is somebody that you can share your truth with, that's not going to open their trap. Right? Because let me be abundantly clear. Yeah, you can talk to lots of people about what's going on in your life, and lots of people can tell lots of people what's going on in your life, right? So it's not about sharing your business with everyone, though God has had me share a lot of my healing journey, in real time. And I get, for some people, that it makes zero sense, but I can't be worried about that, right? Because again, are you doing what God told you to do? Cool. If you're doing what God told you to do, then that's all that matters, right? Everything else is everything else. So it's important to make sure you're doing what God is telling you to do, even when it's uncomfortable for you, because there are times where it's not comfortable for me. And then check-ins. You have to check in with yourself and sometimes others, all right? And I wrote sometimes underlined, because again, you really need to ask God, who are the people that you should be sharing information with? Because some people rejoice in your demise and your shortcomings. There are people that don't really truly celebrate you. There are people that are not going to truly and fully support you. They just want to be in your business, right? That's really what they want to do. All right, with the honey that I put in, it's not bad at all. It is, so it's what kind of tea was this? Earl Grey. Yeah, so I definitely take the so Earl Grey to me has a very distinctive taste. It's not like an English breakfast. I mean, it's a basic tea. It's not like, it's not like my chai teas and stuff. Um, but I'm tasting that Earl Grey flavor more than I typically do, because I feel like sometimes I've had Earl Grey and it tastes like English breakfast. I'm not even really tasting anything that's distinctive, but this is actually really good with the honey, y'all. With the honey. Without it, no thanks. No thank you at all. All right. So coming back to this, the questions are critical measure of progress and placement. Progress is important to understand when you're going through a healing journey, because it feels like nothing is in your control. It feels like nothing is happening positively sometimes. It feels like sometimes people are separating themselves from you. It feels like God is separating you from people and things and opportunities, and has you kind of like on an island unto yourself at moments. So it's important to have a measure that, like, is what I'm doing changing me? Is it bettering me? Is it impacting others? Those are important measures, but it's of progress and placement, because sometimes the stillness, or you not being knocked off your square, right? Like, so somebody's trying to, make you act a fool, or somebody is trying to position you where, you're, you lose your cool, or you, how do I say it? You take the bait, right? They're trying to, like, oh well, Cheryl, da 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 da, right? And you did that, right, Cheryl? You've done that before. And Cheryl's like, no, I've never done that before. Like, how y'all know when somebody's trying to get under your skin, or trying to lie on you, or trying to goad you into conversation, or sometimes making you share more information than you would, right? You all know that. This is not news to you. So sometimes we don't take a moment to recognize that the fact that you didn't fall for the okie doke is actually progress. All right. That's a good place to be in. So first question, y'all know I have to like pull this up, or like I have to take my glasses off. So I'm going to do a mixture of both. Right. So the first question, ooh, Lord have mercy, drop the paper. First question is, what pain am I still blaming others for that I haven't taken responsibility to heal? So that's a really good question. What I will say about that question before I respond to it is this. If you notice, the question said, what pain am I still blaming others for that I haven't taken responsibility to heal? It doesn't say that the person didn't do wrong. You're not taking responsibility for the pain. You're not even taking responsibility for what somebody did to you, because they very well may have been mean to you, have done something to you, put you in harm's way, assaulted you, verbally, mentally, or physically, or sexually, right? They may have done any of those things, right? That may be a very, very real thing. What pain are you still blaming others for? Because the reality of it is, you may never in your life get an apology. Never. Right? Sometimes the person is no longer living. So clearly you're not going to be getting an apology. I don't know if they do apologies on the other side, but I'm not really worried about that in heaven, to be quite honest with you. Right? But the fact of the matter is, you may never get an apology, or you might get one of those half-hearted, I'm so sorry if what you experienced was caused by pain and you feel like I had something to do with it. One of those not real apologies, those fake ones that they could have really kept, that kind of junk. You may get some of that, right? But at the end of the day, you can't sit in a space where this person is still maintaining control over you and they're 6 feet under. Right? You're still, now it's not to say you don't address it. There's a very big difference. I can address a thing can be the truth. And I can also say, yes, I understand that I'm never going to get an apology. I'm never going to understand the why about that. It doesn't negate that they've done it. but it also says I'm not giving them control over the next version of my life, the next steps of my life. They don't get to control that. They controlled maybe that moment. They controlled how they made me feel about how they spoke to me or spoke about me. All those things may very well be true, but I'm not giving them the carte blanche, the access to say, you know what, this is going to be Stacy's next 5 years, 2 years, one day, right? It's just not going to be a thing. So that's a question that I had to like really sit with. Do I actually, and this is another, so this is the next question, y'all. Do I really want to heal, or do I want the pain to stop? So this question, I'm going to tell you that at the beginning of my healing journey had one response. When I had the relationship end, had a very different response, because that was like a reigniting of a different part of a healing journey for me, right? So when I first started my healing journey in February, if I were to ask or answer this question, do I actually want to heal, or do I want the pain to stop? I think my answer would have been that I wanted the stuck feeling to stop. So if that's pain, then yes, I wanted that to stop, because I was like, okay, God, in my life, I feel like there's like, what's going on in my life? What is the next thing? Because I didn't really feel like that I was living my full purpose, or like the vision of what my life is going to be. And this, remember, this is still when I'm in a relationship and thinking that I'm going to be getting married and all that, right? So, but I still felt that stuck thing. That's why I tell people, even if you're in marriage, or if you're going to be getting married, you have to have your own identity, right? You have to have your own thing going on. You have to know who you are, know whose you are, know what your purpose is, know what you have assigned to you, because it's important that you live that out, and you need to figure that out, right? So I was in a space that, it's not to say that I wasn't still doing the things that I was doing. I was reading my word and praying and doing all those things, right? So it's not that. It's really the fact that I was just like, okay, God, like, I know there's more. I just don't know what the more looks like, what that is, right? Then, when I think about, did I actually want to heal after that? After I had that conversation and I started my healing journey, I'm like, and I started unpacking stuff and realizing that I've compartmentalized a lot of my pain throughout life. When I started like unveiling that, then I really wanted to heal. I was like, oh, I can't carry this. Because then I was like, man, maybe this is why God couldn't really fully give me what my full purpose is, because I had all this baggage that I was carrying in that may have, inhibited my ability to be effective in whatever He is going to be having me do. Or, not be able to address or relate to people, because I wasn't adopting or really integrated into what I needed to, what I needed to process. So that was the truth of that. Moving into August, September timeframe, when all hell kind of broke loose, right? When the relationship ended, I initially, and this is my honest response, y'all, and I think I've said this before, but my honest response was nothing. I remember telling people, I'm like, oh, so he's getting married, and then that was that. Right? I literally was like texting people, yeah, I guess the relationship is done. Da, 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 da. Like that was it, right? I did feel like I got punched in the stomach or kicked in the stomach, if I'm going to be honest, right? I definitely felt the wind was knocked out of me. And I honestly expected, and I've said this also before, but for those of you who are new viewers, I did say before that I really expected to go into a dark place. Like I really was preparing myself to go into a dark place, because I've done that before, right? So my mental, I think, was also in a space of, okay, here we go. We're going to go into this dark tunnel, and we're going to be there for a while. And in that tunnel, then maybe God will have a conversation with me during that period of time. And that's what I was preparing my mind for. That being said, I went into a numb. I literally didn't feel much of anything. Every once in a while, I'd have like this like moment, right, where it would like be like a little bit of a stabbing feeling, or it'd be a moment where I was like, man, this is really really hard. This is really, really painful. This is really, really unexpected. I did not anticipate this was going to be this version of my life. This was not on my bingo card for 2025, right? Did not have that at all. And so I sat in that moment. So if I'm to answer the question from that perspective, I really wanted to heal immediately. Then there were moments where I was like, God, please let the pain stop. Because then as I start to say to God, I want to heal. And the reason why I said to God earlier on this time that I want to heal was because I knew that if I didn't do that, then maybe my mind and my spirit would have been into that dark abyss. And I could not do that again. One, because it was bad the first time. Two, because I felt like God was already doing so much and I didn't want to be disconnected from him, right? Of all the things in life, it's important for me to be connected to certain people. But there's nothing like having a connection or a disconnection from God. And I was not doing that. Like that was not optional at all, because I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get through this mentally, or emotionally or spiritually without that connection. So I was like, no, I got to heal. How do we heal, God? How do we do this? How do we work this out? Because I have to do that. And then like I said, then I was like, okay, God, this hurts a little bit. This hurts a little bit. This was a gut punch. This was not expected. This was not planned. And I've told you all, I felt humiliated, 100% felt humiliated. I was the whole, you asked my mom for my hand. That's one thing that makes me mad, to be honest with you, when I think about that. But you got up in front of my whole church and told all the people that we were going to be getting married sooner than you think. So, I felt humiliated, and I felt like that's not something that, and then I think the reason why the humiliation got reignited is when people started to hear about it or learn about it. I got the, oh, I'm so sorry. Or, girl, you better off. See, the Lord done spared you. And I'm like, y'all, I get it, but give me a second. Give me a second. Give me more of like, I'm praying for you, Stacy. I know this is hard or hurt, but I get it that people are awkward, y'all, around lots of things. Death makes people awkward, which I guess this is a death of a relationship. So I guess I should have expected people to be a little bit awkward, but the level of awkward and some of people's responses, let me just tell you, I didn't appreciate. I just did not appreciate. And so it was a challenge. It was very much a challenge, because the humiliation that I felt knowing when I knew and when my family knew and the people that I kind of shared it with knew, that was one thing. But then when I told more people and I shared it, because I didn't, and the reason for me sharing it was because people kept asking me, so what's going on? When are you getting married? And I'm like, never getting married to this person, right? So, but I didn't want to share that initially because I was still dealing with it, and I didn't want to like boo-hoo in front of every single person every time they asked me, because now when I'm asking God to help me through the emotion of it, the emotion was out there and it was raw, right? So this is where it goes back to what I said earlier. Find the right people for you to talk to when you're going through certain circumstances, but you need to be able to answer these questions, right? Because as you are now maybe past that initial feeling, what is your feeling about that now? Are you now just trying to go through the motions to like heal because it's expected? Or, you've told people that you're healing, Stacy, or are you healing because you really want to be a healed person? You really want to walk in a different space in your life. And I can firmly say that it's because I want to be a healed person and walk in a different space in my life. It's not because of how people view me. People view me how they view me. That's always been the case. I've just come to more understanding and acceptance of that. Honestly, since I was elected, that was when my brain shifted the most in that area. All right. So another question I'm going to ask is, am I addicted to chaos? Right. Now, this is a question that I asked of the other people, because I can tell you this is a no for me. I like quiet. I like peace. I hate chaos. I don't like things that I don't like anything that makes my central nervous system feel overexerted. So like, I don't like people making me late, even though if I'm late on my own, that's one thing, right? But when people make me late, like especially if like perfect example, I was supposed to go to this big event, right? And the person that was with me had 0 sense of time. 0. So I'm doing my most, getting myself ready, doing all the things. I'm ready. And mind you, if you're getting ready for like, especially like for a black tie event as a female, there's a lot going on, right? There's a lot going on. So ready for this black tie event, did all my things, had myself ready, hair, makeup, all the things, right? Why? Because I know how much time I need to do said things. So if I'm now waiting on you because you're like, that junk gets under my skin, right? That whole chaotic feeling. Because now I'm like, we got to rush. I hate it. I detest that, right? But the reality of it is, can you guys tell I don't like it? But the reality of that is, people try to bring chaos, but I protect my peace. And that's important. That is important. It is important. Lots of people in employment places will be chaotic. Oh my gosh, I need this yesterday. I need you to stop what you're doing. And I need you to do this. And like, I remember I would have that. And I remember before, when I was a younger employed person, I was bending over backwards, doing all the things, staying up till midnight, 3 a.m, getting up and going to work and, acting like everything was fine, but being exhausted to the point where I was like, this don't make no type of sense. Why am I now? It's different if something pivots on a dime and it's a one-time thing, like a one-off. But when I see it's a habitual, systematic pattern, we got a problem. So I start to say, hey, yeah, you want this thing done and this thing. I can only do one of them. So which one is your priority? Because that will get done. The other thing is going to be shelved until I have the time to devote to whatever you make the priority. And I remember at first people were looking at me like, what? What do you mean you're saying no? I'm saying no. Because I can't do all things. I was never meant to be all things. I am not a mule. I'm not a pack animal. I can't pull your burden and do all of this as well all the time. Can I pitch in every once in a while? Sure. But if your thought process is for me to be a pack animal and go 24 hours a day because you haven't planned accordingly, nah. That's not good for you. And I think the problem is that so many of us have forgotten ourselves in our own life story. We've forgotten ourselves, right? So now that I'm in a healing journey and I have to focus on me, sometimes even that is uncomfortable, right? Because I'm like, okay, I have to center myself in this conversation. I have to think about, what have I learned? What have I not learned? What am I doing badly? So the fact that I'm even have to think about me is sometimes foreign, but it's necessary, right? All right. So yes, I'm not addicted to chaos. I can't stand it. It drives me over the edge. Not a thing for me. What emotions do I avoid the most? This was a really interesting question when I asked this of people, because a lot of people said anger is the emotion that they avoid the most. But the funny thing is, a lot of people were saying that, but they were having a hard time avoiding it because it comes. Right? There's a very real reality that anger in itself is not a bad emotion to have. If it were, then it would have been called a sin in the Bible, and Jesus did not call it a sin. It says, be angry, but sin not. So that means anger in itself is not a sin, right? Because if it did say, it would be said, anger is a sin. Be angry, but sin not. All right. So the reality is we have to look at the emotions that we avoid the most and sometimes think about why we avoid them. Do we not like how we feel when we're expressing or experiencing that emotion? Do we not like how others treat us when we're expressing or experience that emotion? That takes a deeper dive. A lot of times when I speak to men, they don't like expressing sadness or empathy or any of those things, because people call them simps or weak, or all the things that people like to label men as when they actually are in touch with their emotions, God forbid, right? So a lot of people avoid emotions that make them feel like they are out of control. right? That's the thing that people tend to avoid the most. Then that's again, and this is not a judgment. This is something for you to recognize and then ask God, why do I not feel comfortable in that thing? Right? Why does this make me feel uncomfortable? Why do I sit in a place of, every time I feel sadness, why do I try to make a joke, crack a joke to like change the mood and to pivot? Well, you're deflecting because sitting in that space makes you recognize that maybe you have a lot of sadness that you don't want to experience. You don't want to, but you have to experience it to let it out. Choking it down, putting it in a compartment doesn't work. And I'm telling you, as somebody who's done it, it doesn't work. At some point, the dam is going to break. The compartment is going to bust open because you try to cram so much in it and you try to sit on it, but now the screws on the side are shaking, right? And so at some point, it's going to burst open. And so you have to, have the conversation with yourself. Do I want it to be something that I actually welcome into the conversation? Or is it going to be something that explodes into the conversation? And when it does that, maybe I do not have the ability to actually control where this conversation goes. That's again, only on you to make that decision. Another question is, am I choosing partners? So this is for anybody who's considering dating, right? Am I choosing partners who reflect my worth or my wounds? My worth or my wounds? Y'all, when I say that this one, like, I was like, oh. This one is challenging for me. And I say it's challenging for me because I don't really know that I've tapped into or had tapped into what I thought my worth was, because that would require me thinking about me or centering me. And I didn't do that. Right now, it's always been interesting for me that people that don't know me or have not taken the opportunity to get to know me have had very real thoughts about who I was and how I operate and what I find important, what I prioritize. Potentially because the entirety of how I show up, right, is most people have probably seen me with makeup on, right, with my hair or whatever hair I have on that day, right, done. So they've seen the packaging of me. They don't necessarily know who I am, but they assume that that's who I am. So people have assumed I'm snobby. They've assumed that, whatever that they've assumed of me. I love when people say, oh yeah, you're definitely rich. I'm like, oh yes, my father is rich in houses and land. If you're talking about me, I don't know where you got that one from. But again, people have had very specific assumptions of me. But my worth, as far as what I thought of it, was not a lot, y'all. It just wasn't. It just wasn't. I've been very good at protecting the ability for me not to get close to people or for people not to hurt me. So very few people actually know Stacy. Very few people, right? Very few people I've actually let in to people. Very few people have seen me with my eyebrows not on. That's an indicator right there if you know me on a deeper level, right? But the fact of the matter is there's not very many people that do, and because of that, well, so because I've worked very hard at having an image, and that has been something cultivated since I was a kid, right? Very much the Thompson girls. We would look to Just So, and we had ourselves together Just So. And that's not a bad thing. You shouldn't look raggedy when you're going out of the house, right? But the issue is that people never got to know the people that were the people, right? We were not a thing like the Powerpuff Girls or something like that, right? We were individual people, with very different personalities and very different thoughts about the world. And well, not very different thoughts about the world mostly, but we're different, right? We're three different human beings. And when you are put into this position that people see you as like a thing, then they don't get to know you as a person. So people assigned my worth and I just accepted whatever they assigned to it because I didn't care enough to really go into that. So when people treated me like trash, then I felt like trash. And that's just what it was. So for me, a lot of my dating was this desire to not feel like that. Right? I wanted this person that was going to center me, and I mean, me unpacking a lot of it is very much a, I wanted somebody to choose me, and I wanted somebody to, um, have let me have my bibbity bobbity boo experience. Like, being Cinderella and swept off her feet and all that. I know it's unrealistic, y'all, but my mental my mental thought about me was somebody's going to see who I am, even though inside I'm feeling like Cinderella, right? Inside I'm feeling like that. But somebody will see that there is a queen in me somewhere, even though I don't see it, right? That's literally a lot of and this is the other thing. I wasn't really choosing partners. It was like, okay, who's around, who's interested. Okay, cool. He's calling me regularly, so I guess this is the thing. I don't know that I've ever felt like somebody was like, I see so much value in this woman. This woman is, you know, who I could see building a future with. I thought I saw that in the last one, but y'all see how that worked out. Um, so I guess to a certain extent, I was dating versus I was choosing a partner reflecting my wounds, because I didn't feel like I had worth. So I guess it's a 2-4 combo, right? So these are important conversations, y'all. And I get that sometimes they're hard conversations to have. I get that sometimes they're painful conversations to have. But if we're wanting to actually be healed, we can't be lying to ourselves, right? We cannot be lying to ourselves. We have to be having these hard, because we always, oh, this man won't have a conversation about nothing, and these dudes don't want to speak about. But ma'ams and sirs, are y'all having the difficult conversations with yourself? Are you having those conversations with you? Because if you're not even willing to have those conversations with you, then you don't even need to be worried about somebody else having a conversation. You need to be able to answer these questions for yourself. Unfortunately, I guess they had their shades on. Well, that happens, girl. It happens. All right, last question, because I see I'm running out of time. The last question that I'll ask is my comfort zone really a trauma response? My answer is yes. My comfort zone is deflection, and deflection and pivoting takes lots of different avenues. Sarcasm being one. My family is very sarcastic, but I would say I love sarcasm because it, when I want to put somebody off of their footing, or if I feel like somebody's getting too close to something that I don't want to talk about, I'm going to be funny. I'm going to be sarcastic. I'm going to turn it around on them. I know how to do it in a masterful way, y'all. Masterful. Because when you've been doing it for decades, you learn how to do it well, right? And so my comfort zone is 100% me deflecting and showing up in that way. I will say that in November, I think it was November or December, God told me that I no longer needed to do that. I no longer needed to deflect, that I just needed to feel what I needed to feel. Y'all, I'm not saying that that's fun. I'm not saying that's fun. And I'm not saying I've entirely stopped deflecting. Why? Not because I don't feel like God told me that I no longer need to do it, but it's because it's been a habit for so long. One thing that is beneficial is now I'm aware of it. So I see when I'm doing it, I'm aware. It kind of pops up in my head. I'm like, oh, you're doing the thing, right? And so now, because I have awareness, then I can pivot back into the conversation. Or I can say to this person, so you're asking me something I'm uncomfortable to answer, and I can't answer that right now. But that is me acknowledging that I heard the question. I'm not running from the question. I'm just not in the mental, emotional, or spiritual space to answer it. But again, I have to be able to answer the questions to me, because I need to hold myself responsible or accountable for me being able to answer these questions to me. If I can't answer these questions, then the reality of it is relationships of any kind with people is going to be challenging. It's going to be very challenging. Okay. So with that, we have come to the end of this episode of Sipping Tea with Stacey T. Hopefully these questions have prompted you to think about, how you're doing in your healing journey, have made you recognize that you need to give yourself more grace, maybe, inject a little bit more grace as you navigate it, but also to recognize that, you know what, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. Um, Things are going to be challenging sometimes, but just keep plugging away at them. Keep answering the questions that you need to answer, and then go to God for the answers. Ask yourself the questions, but if you don't know the questions, you know who knows the answers, and that's God. So, all right, y'all. I appreciate you so much. Have a great and blessed rest of your week. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and extend to yourself. And please, to me, your girl, a measure of grace. I will see you next week, which is going to be March. Lord have mercy, y'all. March already? This is crazy. But I'll see you next week on the next episode of Sipping Tea with Stacy T. Bye, y'all.